I know you love a best exercise for jiu-jitsu list, so you won't be disappointed with this one, and I guarantee by the end of this video, you're gonna have new exercises you've never seen or never done that you can add to your jiu-jitsu weight training. No, I won't be reinventing the wheel, but there are some variations that I really like that I want to share with you. So what I've done is I'm gonna break this video down into 7 different movement categories. Now, typically, these fundamental movement patterns would be squat, push, pull, hinge, lunge, twist, carry, but I'm getting rid of the lunge. Why? Because I'm gonna have some single leg stuff in the other categories, so I don't need that one. I'm gonna add or replace it with explosive, because that's always missing. So it's going to be in this one. For each category, I'm just going to give you 3 of my favorite exercises, or at least 3 that I think will probably be the most effective for most people to do. Just because your favorite exercise isn't on that list doesn't mean it's not effective, and doesn't mean that I think it's shit. It just means I've picked 3 that I really like. And if you don't know who I am, I've spent my career working in professional and international level sport as a strength and conditioning coach. I hold my master's in sport and exercise science, which means that I've applied my expertise in the real world, which is contrary to what is currently going on Instagram and everywhere else on social media. So let's just get straight into this. Let's start with the squat, and I'm going to show you videos of each of these so you know exactly what's happening. Here's my 3. Let's start with number 1, the front squat. Love me some front squats. I will typically program front squat for most people over the back squat, just because 1, the loads are slightly lighter, 2, you just tend to see less lower back issues when you're doing front squats over back squats. Plus, you get the addition of the upper back stress of having to support that load, as soon as you start rounding over or falling forward, that bar is leaving your shoulders. And it also tends to be easier for people to hit depths when they're doing front squats versus back squats. Regarding sets and reps for it, honestly, you have the whole scale. I will say that front squats don't lend themselves very well to higher reps. So the max reps I would probably ever do would be anywhere from the 6 to 8 range for the front squat. If you're doing high reps, back squats would be superior in that instance. All right, exercise number 2, the hand supported split squat. I guess you could also call it the Hatfield split squat, but I think that's just bastardized because it was only the Hatfield squat. So the hand supported split squat it is. Now you do need a safety squat bar for this. You need specialty equipment. I will say though, if you have a home gym, get one, game changer. So the hand supported split squat is really nice. Because you have your hands holding something, it means you have 4 points of contact, which means more stability, which means you can load single leg heavier. And that's what I really love about it. The heavier loads, the faster movement, all on a single leg exercise. Anecdotally, I will say that if you have knees that can flare up every now and then, this is the one exercise that keeps my knees healthy. I need to make sure I do this exercise. I usually try and do it at least minimum every 2 weeks, ideally every week or every 10 days, and my knees stay pain-free. When I don't do this exercise and I'm doing mainly bilateral work, I find that my knees do flare up. So this is one of those heavy strength exercises that's a remedial exercise at the same time for me. You might find the same thing for you. Typically, I like to do these heavy, anywhere from 3 to 5 reps per leg. Put a pad down under your knee for the split squat. You can also do Bulgarian split squat with this as well. So you got some variation of it. And for my 3rd squat pattern, I'm adding, I guess, a lot of people's favorite, which is a Zercher variation. But this one's a Zercher squat from pins. I really like this. It's got the dead stop. You can modify your leg position based on if you want to do it, say, staggered stance, or you can just do a typical bilateral squat. So it gives you options there as well. You can adjust the pin height depending on if you want to really overload the upper back, but because it's a squat pattern, we'll have it set down to the bottom. Now I will say this is where the safety squat bar is clutch as well, because you have the padding, makes it a lot easier and a lot more comfortable when you're doing the Zercher variation. Now typically you can, again, you'll do this for relatively low reps, 3 to 5 reps. Even better is if you can attach bands to the side so you can really rip that thing up, almost like you're gonna throw someone over your head. So those are my 3 top squat variations for jiu-jitsu. Now let's move on to our push variations. First one, push press. Why does no one do push press? It is single-handedly the best upper body push exercise, in my opinion. Now I'm not saying for brute strength. I'm not saying for brute raw pressing strength because you have momentum with the legs, but for a whole body exercise to be able to lift heavy loads overhead, push press is there. Now, it is slightly technical because 1, you have to have the mobility to hold the bar in the rack position. Typically, I've just had athletes hold it in their hands in front of them like this if they can't, and it still works quite well. It just becomes a little harder to support that load. But it's one of those exercises that teaches you the sequencing from the floor through to your hands. And because you have the leg momentum, you're not going to have a lot of soreness in your upper body from doing it. Now, my second exercise is a raw pressing exercise, and that is a close grip bench. Now, when I'm talking bench press, I very rarely, in fact, I don't think I ever have programmed a regular bench press or told an athlete to widen their grip in the bench press. I like to see bench presses done for athletes where it's kind of shoulder width or just outside, which would be considered, I guess, close grip in the powerlifting world. And that's because that's where most of the action happens when you are doing most sports, including grappling, where you have your hands in front of you, or even when you're posting on someone with your arm. So close grip bench for me is my regular flat bench variation. Now you can obviously do many different variations of the close grip bench. My other favorite one is close grip bench off the pins. So you're starting from a dead stop on your chest. Which then brings me to my third pressing exercise. It's an incline bench. Dumbbells, barbells, whatever you want. We basically covered the three main angles of pressing: overhead, flat, incline. Not much to say other than incline bench will work your upper chest more if you care about physique. Outside of that, I mean, you're pressing. So those are my three pressing exercises. Let's move on to the pulls. First one, weighted chin up. Now, whether it's a chin up or a pull up, I don't care. And the difference is underhand versus pronated grips. But I love the weighted variations. Typically I like to do these for 5 to 6 reps. I've just found that's the sweet spot for doing these. You can go as low as 3 if you're really going heavy, but 5 to 6 reps works really well. Now, if you run into elbow issues, for example, doing underhand chins, or even just pronated grip pull-ups, try and use implements that rotate. So rings work well because they rotate naturally with your arm as you do your pull-up. Neutral grip bars can help as well, but even better is if you are varying your grips often, which means either every week or different training cycles. You want to make sure you vary your grips as much as possible, and that will help reduce the risk of developing elbow problems from doing the same thing over and over. The next one you might not think would be on there, but it's a machine row. And when I say machine row, I literally mean any machine. My favorite is the hammer iso row. That thing just feels amazing. Other options are bent over like T-bar rows. That's my other favorite. But I like the machine rowing variations because you can really load those hard and you can load the muscles of the back well. Barbell rows and dumbbell rows, like bent over, are fine, and you should definitely do them if you, for example, in a garage gym and don't have machines, and they are very effective. But machines are probably one of the areas of the body where I would say machines are better than doing the free weight versions. Again, vary your grips, vary the machine, whatever it is. I just really like that. And then the third one would be a one-arm dumbbell row variation, but it's the croc row variation. If you don't know the croc row, made famous by Matt, I can't even say his last name, Croc. I was gonna call him Matt Croc because that was kind of the short name. Now, he invented, it's essentially a heavy dumbbell row he invented, but cheating. And they just called it the croc row. So he would take like a heavy ass weight and he would use momentum and body English to row it. Now, you can use it with straps or without straps. I would recommend doing it without straps because then you can train your grip at the same time. But essentially you're getting a dumbbell that you can maybe row strict for about 10 reps. And then from then on, you're just ripping that thing using your whole body to get to 20 reps. It's basically like the 20 rep squat, but it's a 20 rep row. And it's a very effective mass builder and strength builder for the back and the grip. All right, let's move on to the hinge exercises. Now, this will typically involve the deadlift, but it will not involve the deadlift because the deadlift, in my opinion, is not a pure hinge exercise. It's almost like a pseudo hinge squat. But what is in there is the Romanian deadlift, which I would argue is a better variation for jiu-jitsu athletes like you than the deadlift itself, especially if you're already squatting. And you have to make a decision whether you're going to do, for your lower body work, a heavy squat variation or a heavy deadlift variation, at least in my opinion. You can do both, but I find that picking one to really push and go hard and then the other one to be more accessory works better. So for example, if you're gonna pick the conventional deadlift as your main lift, you're probably gonna do some kind of single leg RDLs, etc. as your accessory work. But regardless, Romanian deadlift for me, pure hinge, you're pushing the hips back, you get a huge stretch on the hamstrings, loading the glutes, and absolutely firing those spinal erectors. I like to do these 5 to 6 reps. You can go heavier even for 3s, but this should be one of those staples in there if you're not doing a lot of Olympic weightlifting, which I'll get to. And it kind of actually segues well into the second exercise I like, the floating snatch pull. Now again, not a pure hip hinge, but you do these and you'll find that your hammies, glutes and erectors will be fired up the next day. Now the floating variations I really like. If you can't do the Olympic variations because they're a little more technical, that's completely cool. you can do a floating deadlift as an example. And by floating, it just means the bar doesn't touch the floor after you've picked it up. So you're doing your snatch pull or your deadlift, and then you're lowering the weight back down till it's about an inch off the floor, reversing it and going again. Having to hold and support those loads while doing the exercise is a potent stimulus you probably haven't felt before. So give that a go. But for this one, you need to use straps. So make sure you have straps to do this. And my third exercise is a kettlebell swing. And I like the kettlebell swing. You could class it more as an explosive hinging exercise, but it is a pure hinge, and it is a very fast and rapid eccentric to concentric contraction when you're trying to reverse that kettlebell from going down to up. That's what I have for the hinge. Let's move on. We have 3 more categories. Twist. This one is going to be a little different. We have landmine rotation. Probably one of my favorite rotational trunk exercises. Again, I've covered this before, but you can do it in 3 different stages. You can do one anti-rotation style where your hips stay square and you're moving the landmine side to side. You can do the second variation, which is kind of a progression where you're just doing one side at a time while turning the hip. And then the third variation will be going side to side as fast as you can because you have to decelerate that very quickly. The second exercise is a back extension with a twist. Slightly different since we're doing essentially the reverse, but the back extension with twist is a really nice variation that will light up your erectors, give you some of that glute hamstring work on top of it as well. And the third one, just wrestling. I don't know if you've ever taken some time off and come back and done your stand-up and really had to fight actual resisting opponents. Your obliques and trunk are damn sore the following day, and nothing beats the specificity of that kind of training on those trunk muscles. So that will be my 3 there. Relatively easy and simple. Carries, honestly, any carries are good carries. But here are 3 of my favorites. The bear hug, which is holding an implement in front of you. The farmer's walk, which is holding implements in your hands by your side. And the zercher, which is just holding something in the crook of your elbow in front of you. These are my 3 favorites, typically done with either farmer's handles and sandbags. You can walk for max distance, you can walk for max time, you can walk a set distance for a certain number of reps. There's just so many variations to do with these. They're so versatile. You need to have a sandbag to do some of these movements, and it's well worth it. And finally, we get into our explosive category to round out our 21 best jiu-jitsu exercises. First one, jump squat. What I like about the jump squat is you can set different loads depending on what you're trying to achieve. You can load it holding a trap bar, holding dumbbells, barbell on your back. Typically, if you're trying to maximize peak power, you're looking at 30 to around 40% back squat 1RM on the bar. If you're looking to be more down the speed end, I like 10% of body weight in your hands as dumbbells total, and then you jump. Relatively simple. The next explosive one would be a snatch high pull. Now this is a little more complicated or complex to do, but if you can do these are epic. You don't have to worry about the catch phase overhead. You're essentially doing a high pull with a wider grip by using your damn legs to heave that bar up, so you're getting heavily loaded speed work. Now you don't have to do these from the floor either. I really like these from the blocks, so where the bar is around knee height, but you can do them from any height in there. Typically you can use straps for these as well. Sets of 3 to 5. Awesome. For the jump squat, same thing. Sets of 3 to 5, unless you're doing other set rep configurations like cluster sets, etc. Finally, the power clean is pretty much a staple in, I guess, most college strength training programs. You don't have to do them, but I quite like them. And if you can't do the catch phase, you can use a high pull or a clean pull, a jump shrug. These are all options as well within that, but I just wanted to give the power clean because I quite like them. You can also use it in a complex. So for example, you can do pulls plus power clean. You can do power cleans plus front squat. These are all different complexes you could do depending on the phase of training you're in. And if you enjoyed this list, check the description. The free Jiu-Jitsu strength and conditioning blueprint is there. Lays out everything you need to know for setting up your Jiu-Jitsu strength conditioning, and it's completely free. And if you want to see some Jiu-Jitsu strength training in action, click this thumbnail.